Carlos Nelson with Cascade Sports, and tonight we're going to be talking to one of our coaches on our this segment of Coach's Corner, Coach Paul Banks. How you doing, Coach?
Good morning, Carlos. I'm doing great. How you doing?
All right, let's go back to kindergarten and tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what
All
you.
right. Born and raised in Dayton, Ohio. Uh, went to Westwood Elementary. Ended up going to Roth High School. Uh, tried to run track there and tried to play a little bit of football. Uh, Interesting story. Uh, my senior year, right before I was getting ready to play and everything, we had a new coach named a young man, David Lewis Henderson, D.L. Henderson. Uh, I was all ready to play. All of a sudden, we got a letter from the state saying that all students that are 18 before the football season can no longer play sports. So if I was 18 before the basketball season, I couldn't play. I'm like, what the heck? The principal, everybody sent letters and everything. Ended up, I couldn't play, but he made me a promise. He said, you get your grades up and you do what I tell you, I'll get you into college. And I got to play in the scrimmages and stuff like that. Never got to play a game. Stayed as a trainer. Kept working out every day. Ended up getting talking to Big Jim Walker at Central State University. Me and my roommate Orlando Moore, and Big Jim asked me two questions. He said, "Boy, can you run?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Boy, can you hit?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "I'll see you in August." He shook my hand, and that's how I got to Central State. It was interesting. It was fun. Uh, I didn't know the backgrounds of some of the coaches over the last so many years. I knew one of them. One of them was a great defensive back. You may have heard him, Dick Night Train Lane. He's a Hall of Fame defensive back. He was so tough and vicious in his tackles. They literally had 15-yard penalties for things he was doing. They invented laws to stop him from clotheslining people. It was called the night train necktie. And and watching old film with him, and I didn't know Big Jim's Coach Walker's background. He was a big time football player for University of Iowa. He played for the 1930 and 1939 football team called the Ironman, the Iowa Hawkeye Ironman. They played both ways, especially never came off the field. Uh, it was interesting. He played for some of the early NFL football teams before they changed their names. One of the men that recruited him was a guy named Duke Slater. Duke Slater was a NFL Hall of Fame guy, went to class, I think 2020, and played at Iowa. And the interesting note, all these men were members of Kappa Alpha Psi, every last one of them. Uh, Ended up leaving my first job at Central State. I was a graduate assistant with a guy named Mo Hunt. Mo Hunt was a graduate at Kentucky State. I was a graduate assistant helping with the defense, just learning what to do because I still don't know what to do. That's why I'm always learning now. Ended up leaving Central State, went to Wisconsin. I went to Chicago, really. Uh, Played semi-pro ball there for 1 year, then got signed by the USFL as an outside linebacker for the Chicago Fire at the time. Uh, Played a little bit, got cut. As I was leaving Soldier Field, this an old guy was waiting for me. He looked like the Penguin. He had a bunch of paper in his hand. He said, "Guys, don't feel bad about it. Uh, I know you got cut. I have one of the best semi-pro teams in the United States. I will find you a job. I'll find you an apartment. I'll pay you $250 a game if you come play with me." So that's what I did. Uh, uh, that was 1981. Played we were like 17-3, won a national championship. My first job there after the season, I got a job as a substitute teacher. And again, a member of Kappa Alpha Psi, the principal, hired me. And he said, maybe you can work with the football team next year. I ended up working there and as a defensive coordinator. Stayed around there for a while. Ended up going to grad school at University of Wisconsin Whitewater. Uh, for people who don't know, Whitewater is one of the premier Division III football teams in the country. They've won about 5 or 6 national championships over the last 15 years. I got to coach there one year as a linebacker coach and tight ends coach. We always had, and everywhere I've been blessed with having great kids and decent people to work around. Came back, left Whitewater, went to Chicago, ended up working with Coach Al Scott. Al Scott's a famous coach from in the city of Chicago. I think he's won like almost 260 football games before he passed away. Coincidentally, he was a member of Kappa Alpha Psi and went to Central State University. So I'm going back, and I'm telling you this to understand the history. You have what we call coaching tree. I look back at it, I said, wait a minute, what? All these guys, you're around them, but you don't know the full background. Well, in '98, I was invited to a football school in Dallas, Texas. We have a major magazine called the American Football Quarterly Magazine. At the time, it was come out 4 times a year. Now it's called the American Football Monthly. It is a full magazine on nothing but football and development, science, technology, the mental aspects, academics. It talks about that thing, things like that all the time. I was fortunate enough to go down there and stay with Barry Terranova, who was the was the publisher. And we were walking around. He said, when you're around these type of guys, all these big time coaches, the Stoops brothers from Oklahoma, Tubby Raymond from Delaware, the Leach, Rick Leach, who just passed away, guys like that. I'm like, so I'm like a kid in a daggone candy shop, like, oh my God, Or Barry told me, hey, stand right here. I want you to meet somebody. And I'm still in the background, so bear with me. So there's a crowd of people coming towards me, Carlos. And I'm like, why are these guys coming at me? It was Bill Walsh. Now, right now, I don't know if I should run or what. Bill Walsh is coming to me. He sat down. He said, how are you? I said, fine. He's a real personal guy. We were talking. And what is it, 6 degrees of separation? Is that what they call this thing where so I'm talking to him. He said, where are you coaching now? I said, right now I'm coaching in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And he said, well, where'd you get your first coaching job? I said, I used to, be a graduate assistant at Central State and with night train lanes. And he laughed about it because he knew those guys. And then he said, what's your first high school coaching job? I said, I'm in Simeon with Al Scott. Carlos, that man's face, he said, who did you just say? I said, Al Scott. Carlos, he turned beet red. Now, this is Bill Walsh. He turned beet red. There's about 40 people around us. The cameraman, news people, and all his people are looking at me like, what did you just tell him? What did you do? He went on a rant. I mean, I have never seen Bill Walsh ever go off like that. Because on the sideline, he's always a cool demeanor. He was going crazy. I said, what did you do? I said, I didn't do anything. Everybody said, what you do? I'm like, I can't run. You'll get the news people. But anyway, he said, gentlemen, it's not Paul's fault. He said, I'm upset because the guy that the Cincinnati Bengals cut. And I forgot that Al Scott, who I got my first high school coaching job with, used to be with the Cincinnati Bengals. Bill Walsh was his offensive coordinator, and Paul Brown was the head coach. To that day, he was still upset that they cut him because Bill Walsh invented the West Coast offense, but why he had to, modify it was because he had lost speed receivers, and Al Scott was one of them. And it was amazing. People did not know that. There was an attitude, they did not want smart ball players in the NFL. Jim Marshall. Jim Marshall would lead the Vikings and the Bears just to go back to get his law degree. He didn't want anybody to know that he was intelligent. It was amazing. But anyway, that was my little bit of background. I've been coaching high school football. I retired last year. Well, I thought I was going to retire. Ended up being a defensive analyst for Germantown High School, but I worked with the last school I worked at was Whitehaven. Whitehaven's a famous school in Memphis, Tennessee. The principal administration, they believe in the 3 A's: academics, arts, and athletics. And they give you a background about how, and you know, Carlos, you went to Central State, you know, you're a track person, a tennis person, so you know how important academics are. What those coaches showed me, you know, Al Scott, Simeon, guys over Whitehaven, was we are going to use athletics, academics, and arts to propel our kids to the next level, no matter what it is. My first time trying to get a job there, Coach Harris said, you know, forget about the football. Let me show you what we're really proud of. Took me to the near the principal's office. Carlos, I've never seen anything like this before in my life. I'm also a guidance counselor, so I knew that the average mean score for ACT at the time was about 17. You know, in a lot of states, you know, the black neighborhood, black schools, you're minorities, you had like 17, 18, whatever. Carlos, I was stunned. They had a wall that went from the front of the school to the second floor, all the way around, past the gym, past the cafeteria. It was called the Wall of 30s. All these kids have 30s on the ACT exam, either math, science, English, or their composite score. Never saw anything like that before in my life. He said, this is what we're proud of. This is what we do here at Whitehaven. I mean, I was just stunned. And so the years I worked there for 6 years, you always had a group of kids that were fighting to get on this wall. And it was a beautiful thing to see the academics, everything come to fruition about what we wanted to try to do as coaches and educators. Also, they have something called the $1 Million Club. I said, what is the $1 Million Club? The $1 Million Club was everybody that's graduating from Whitehaven, you get an award, a cord for having $1 million or over in scholarships. So if you ever get a chance to look at the news for Memphis, you'll see in April and May, they have the award thing in Whitehaven. Well, we'll have about 30 or 40 kids that have over $1 million. And if you say all you got was $1 million, the kids over there, Whitehaven look at you like, that's all? That's all you got? I got $15 million in scholarships, and it's verified by the guidance counselors. So it was interesting how they use, you know, when I was at Simeon, Scott said, we're going to use this sport to propel our kids. I mean, Scotty was the first person I knew that had freshmen take the ACT exam the first year they got there. He just wanted them to get used to the exam. You know, my first year there, we had 22 or 23 seniors get football scholarships. I never heard anything like that before. And this is 1979, 1980. It was great to see that. And that's my background. That's where I come from.
If you noticed or hadn't noticed, Cascade Sports is home of the student athlete.
Okay.
That's our motto, and can't be any sports without education. Right. So let's talk about specifically what you do as the breakdown of these athletes.
I'm learning. When I was a college coach, I coached at Central State University for 2 years as a graduate assistant. You know, back then we had the 16 millimeter film, and we get a letter about a kid. We look and see how this kid would play and, you know, what's going on. But he get offered, if he was too far away, we may offer him a scholarship. But now everything's digital. So now when we get a student, let's say, for instance, if I was at Whitewater or Concordia or Carthage, now everything's digital, where I would look at a kid. We look at we peruse his academics. You would try to find out a little bit about the kid's behavior. What I found, I had a lot of old coaches, you know, my mentors tell me that, guys in Texas like Jim Hess and John Paul Young, these guys that coached in NFL, and Wade Phillips, and those three guys. Well, Jim Hess passed away a couple of years ago, but Wade Phillips, these guys are mentors to me and godfathers to my daughters. One of the things that always gets every coach in trouble is their character. I don't care if a kid can score 100 touchdowns a year. If I can't trust you, you can't come on my program. And that caught a lot of coaches in trouble. We got to have this kid because he's this, that, and the other, but he has some character issues. And those character issues will get you fired. So as a coach, I would look at the film, and I'd say, okay, here. In the old days, I'd say, here, look at this, and the coaches and coordinators will look at it. Nowadays, they have individual graduate assistant analysts that will say, okay, we're going to look at Carlos Nelson. Carlos Nelson's about 6'2", 6'3", about 185 pounds. He runs track, plays football. He plays tennis. That means he's an athlete. All right, let's look at his academics. Look at your academics. All right. They will, as quiet as it's kept, they will surge. They will look through social media, Facebook, TikTok, all that stuff. They'll find out if you've done anything on there that would tell them, yeah, you're this, but when you have a coach tell you that there's a but behind Carlos, you don't want him because there are some character issues. There's some shaky things on there that he has done or he stated that will cause them to have problems later on. So that's that aspect of cars recruiting and things of that nature and evaluating the kid. What I have learned to do because of people I've been around, I was an offensive line coach and defensive line coach. I understand that during the course of a game, student athletes, players will do certain things because they're either fatigued, or they're hungry, whatever. I had old coaches tell me this a long time ago. I said, as the game progresses, people start to become lazy. They do things. What I learned to do, if I'm seeing a certain scheme, like if I'm watching a zone scheme, everybody runs a zone, everybody stepped one way, we're stepping the air, so we're going to block and get a push. I look at the kid's feet. And when I first started doing this, so why are you standing behind the offensive line? Why are you filming their feet? If that kid takes the wrong step, the whole play is dead. So what are you talking about? I said, what happens? I always tell them this. What happens if you're at a party, there's a pretty girl over there? I said, yeah. The girl's over to the right. You're going to step with the left foot or the right? He said, oh, I'll step with the right. Why? So get there faster. I said, exactly. That's what I'm trying to teach. That's what I look at. I was talking to the defensive coordinator from Germantown High School last night about that. I said, a lot of problems kids have is taking the wrong step and their effort. You got to give your effort and take the right steps. And what I do is, and I'm not a super brain, so I watch film over and over and over. I like this digital slow motion stuff. I can look at stuff over and over and over, blow it up, run it back, and look at what you are doing on an individual play. And that's what I do with each darn lineman. Look at the quarterback and look at the running backs. I want to see that, are you making the right fake? And part of that is something I learned from Bill Walsh at that football school. And I was stunned how detailed those guys were. And that was back in the 80s and 90s. But with this digital age and Zoom meetings and things of this nature, you can literally take a person apart. People laughed about the Super Bowl game. Okay. Everybody was talking about the Eagles are such a great defense, and they are. They're one of the most superior defense I've ever seen. I spoke to one old man, guy named John Paul Young. I said, what do you think? He said, everybody forgets about the Wolf. I said, the who? He said, everybody forgets about Andy Reid. Andy Reid will look at you and take you apart. And sure enough, and I'm like, wait a minute. I was talking to my buddies about that. He said, so thinking about analysis and breaking down a team, they played a national championship playoff game a couple of weeks before they played the Super Bowl, right? The field conditions were outlandish. So they turned around and changed the field. What people don't know is, yes, the Eagles were slipping. Why weren't the Kansas City Chiefs slipping? They're not going to tell me that man, Andy Reid, did not know what the conditions of that football field was going to be, and he changed it. He told his kids, you do not wear these cleats, you wear these, and this is why. because they didn't slip that much. The Eagles slipping all over the place. You thought they were in a greased frying pan. But that's the type of things people do. The better coaches try to take every little thing apart. You can't, well, they do this, they do that. Okay, they do this, they do that, but how do they do it? What does that kid do? How does he respond to a stimulus? How does he respond to a key? All right. And that's the part of that I'm trying to learn now. I'm still trying to learn.
Well, football has come a long way since we were in college in the mid 70s.
Right.
And like everything else, we have dissected. It used to be the general practitioner as a doctor, and he took care of everything. Now they got people that specialize just in your fingernail or just in
Right.
your hair follicle, and that's the same thing that is going on with sports. Uh, the trainers and so forth. I think really the ex-Soviet Union, the Germans, they really first started paying attention to physiology and that type thing.
Physiology.
Yeah, and the breakdown of athletes in general,
They did.
motion and all the things that you're talking about, and it has evolved now into people like yourself that are getting in the industry of self trainers and analysts on different parts of the game.
Oh,
So
Carlos, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, Carlos, what they're doing. I mean, I visited University of Alabama a couple of months ago, and their trainers, their strength coaches have changed to the point now where they are they monitor every movement of an athlete from every kid on the team is evaluated. I've read places where they have sleep monitors by these athletes near their near their head, near their bedrooms and things of that nature. People are about 4 months ago, I started to learn about the importance of scent when it comes to learning. What color, how it affects learning. And I sent it to about 4 of my bunch of. They said, "What the heck?" I said, "Man, I did." And
all
so,
of that makes a difference.
yeah,
I want
it
to
does.
close out with this today that from my perspective, being in media and watching every sport progress, all this progress has to do with economics from my point of view.
Exactly.
You watch the NBA, the NFL, or any of these sports, the more that they have been able to make a profit, that lends to winning and what it takes to win, and now
Right.
that breeds off all these other different areas that have turned into big business because it contributes to winning. Uh, Advertisement. I got Adidas here.
Right.
You have something on logos and all of it. It all the bottom line is capitalism from my perspective.
Right.
When you look at the NFL or any of them, those brands, they have just gone through the roof. You mentioned earlier about character with these kids and the things that coaches are willing to just, no matter how good you are, pass up because the coaches are making big money and they're not going to have a suspect kid with
Yeah.
character issues get them fired.
Oh yeah, and it's happened a lot.
Oh yes. So with that, what are your closing words to our viewers?
Our viewers, I would say, uh, if you have an objective about your students, uh, in academics or athletics or arts or anything like that, try to give them some help obtaining those goals and objectives. Uh, uh, if you want this kid to do, your student to do certain things, try to give them help with it. If you can't afford trainers and coaches and camps, go on YouTube, go on these social media sites and look at these drills, look at things that can help a student. If you're having problems with academics, there are so many academic programs, academic things you can go out there to help a student improve in math and reading and things of that nature. What to eat, how to study, how to maintain yourself as a good person, how to develop as a good person. That's what I would use anything you could legally to help your student. I wish, you and I had half the things these kids have now. I mean, Lord knows where we would have been had we would have been trained and learned about, study habits and learned about the psychological things of studying and learning and things of that nature. I think those are, in closing, I would say, do all you can. Use whatever resources you have, because you're not going to have everything, but you can create some resources. That's the one thing I learned at Whitehaven. They created resources. They wanted to hire ACT scores. They got the books. They got a few people in. They got a grant to help the ACT scores. When you have that many kids getting 30s on the ACT exam, something's going on. And when I first got there, I said, wow. And I even called the American testing people. I said, what's the average score for the minority kids in Tennessee? Oh, 16.5 or 17. I said, okay, what if I told you there's a wall? I went to school as a wall 30. The young man told me I was not telling the truth, and they cheated. And he wanted to know what school it was. I said, no, that's right. I know your attitude. But all the college recruiters that come there, those kids are academically ready to go for academics. They're good in art. They're good in athletics. They're good in academics. And that's what we need to do. But it's using your resources. Don't give up because you don't have. Find a way of getting it done. And that's all I got to say.
All right. First of all, I want to acknowledge and take my hat and Cascade's hat off to some of the coaches that you mentioned, like Night Train Lane and Big Jim. I didn't know that he played with those greats. That's the purpose of Coach's Corner, get a little more information about our coaches, our history, and what have you. But as we always say in closing, when you invest in your community, you're really just investing in yourself. And don't forget that Cascade Sports, we hit hard like a linebacker.
My favorite position.
This program is brought to you by the City of Fountains Coaches Association.